All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of the world's most incredible and, honestly, demanding intellectual traditions, the logic of the Talmud.
So think about this for a second. How in the world did ancient Jewish sages manage to build a massive, incredibly detailed system of law when all they had to work with were the words of the Torah, a text that's ancient and often pretty brief? Well, the answer is just fascinating. It lies in this powerful and unbelievably precise method of reasoning.
I want you to think of this whole thing less like a dry, boring legal document and more like a high-stakes, intellectual detective story. Seriously, the sages are our brilliant detectives. The verses of the Torah are their only clues, and whether they succeed or fail comes down entirely to the quality of their logical toolkit.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with a really specific puzzle. Then we'll check out the tools they use to solve it. We'll actually watch the sages build their own arguments and then try their hardest to break them. And finally, we'll see why this whole process is so revolutionary. So our mystery kicks off with what seems like a pretty simple problem about rituals in the ancient temple. The question itself sounds straightforward, but trust me, the answer is going to take us right into the very heart of Talmudic logic. And here it is. Here's our first big clue. The Torah gives the exact same instruction that certain offerings have to be prepared in the north for 3 different kinds of offerings. Now, in this system, you got to understand there are no wasted words. So if the rule is the same for all 3, that repetition isn't just a mistake, it's a signal. It's a clue that there's something deeper going on. The sages looked at this and asked, wait a minute, couldn't we just learn the rule for one of these from another one? To solve puzzles like this, the sages didn't just, make stuff up. They used a very specific, standardized toolkit of logical principles. They're called hermeneutics. Let's get to know the 2 main tools we need for our story. Okay, first up is a tool called binyan of. You can just think of it as a paradigm or a model. It's kind of like this. If you know that the best new smartphone has an amazing camera, you'd probably assume the other similar phones in that same lineup have pretty good cameras too, right? That's what the sages did. They used one really clear legal case from the Torah to set a standard for other similar cases. The second tool is called gezerah shavah, or a verbal analogy. This one is all about finding the same word or phrase in different places. When you see the exact same, often kind of unique language in 2 totally separate laws, it's like a secret bridge. It lets you carry details and rules from one law right over to the other. So now that we have the tools, let's watch the sages take their first shot. They basically want to prove that all that repetition in the Torah wasn't completely necessary, that they could have figured out the rules just using logic. So they test out their first idea. The Torah explicitly tells us the north rule for the guilt offering, but they ask, what if it didn't? What if that verse wasn't there? Could we have figured it out anyway, just by using the burnt offering or the sin offering as our model? And at first glance, the logic looks like a slam dunk. The guilt offering is considered most sacred, just like the burnt offering and the sin offering, so it seems like either one would be a perfect model to build a case on. Looks like an open and shut case, right? But it's not. And this is where the sheer rigor of this whole system just blows you away. See, finding a similarity, a link, that's the easy part. The real test is whether that connection can survive a brutal stress test. So the sages literally become their own harshest critics. They try to poke holes in their own arguments. And this is a perfect example of how they did it. It's like an opponent stands up and says, whoa, hold on a second, you can't compare a guilt offering to a burnt offering. Why? Because the burnt offering has this one totally unique quality. It is entirely burned on the altar. The guilt offering isn't. That one little difference, it's enough to completely shatter the logical chain. The paradigm fails. This table is basically the graveyard for all their failed attempts. I mean, look at it. They try to derive the rule for the guilt offering from the burnt offering. Fails. Because the burnt offering is unique, it's totally burned. Okay, fine. What about using the sin offering as a model? Nope, that fails too, because the sin offering is also unique. It atones for the most serious sins. So then they get clever. What if we combine 2 of them to teach us about the third? Even that falls apart, because every possible pair has something in common that the third one lacks. It doesn't matter how they try to connect them, it's a complete logical dead end. So all these initial attempts to link the offerings just fail, and they fail spectacularly. It proves that just finding a casual similarity isn't nearly good enough. The system demands an almost perfect match, and if your model has even one unique feature, the whole argument can get thrown out. This seems to set up a hard rule. You have to get your law directly from the text. But what if that's not the only way? And that question right there leads us to the most complex, most profound, and honestly, the most mind-bending puzzle of them all. What happens if your source for a new law isn't the original text itself, but a conclusion that you already figured out using one of these logical tools? Can you build a chain of logic on top of logic?
Let me put it another way. Can you make a copy of a rule from another copy? This is a massive question. It's about the very stability of the entire legal system. If the answer is no, then every single law has to be tied directly back to the original text. But if the answer is yes, well, that opens the door for a chain reaction of legal reasoning. A sage named Rava comes along with this absolutely brilliant proof. It's incredible. Here's how he does it. First, he makes a connection. Using that verbal analogy tool, he links the high priest's bull offering to the regular burnt offering because they share the phrase head and its legs. From that, he derives a new rule. The bull must be cut into pieces. Okay, so that's our first derived law. It's a copy. But then, and this is the amazing part, he takes that same high priest's bull and creates a second link, this time to the special Yom Kippur offerings, using a completely different shared phrase. And just like that, the rule about cutting into pieces, which was itself a copy, gets transferred down the chain to a new case.
And that is the breakthrough moment. Rava proves that the answer is a resounding yes. A law that was itself derived through logic can be a perfectly valid source to teach a brand new law. This establishes this incredibly powerful, cascading principle of reasoning, and it allows the whole system to grow exponentially, all while staying firmly anchored to its original source.
Okay, so let's just step back and zoom out for a second. What does this incredibly intense, kind of nerdy, logical workout really show us about the whole project of the Talmud? You know, what we've just walked through isn't just about ancient sacrifices. It's a masterclass in how to think with rigor and transparency. The goal isn't just to get the right answer. It's to build a logical path to that answer that is so strong, it's basically flawless. Every idea gets stress tested from every possible angle. It's this commitment to consistency and intellectual honesty that allows a finite text to become the source for a coherent and basically infinite legal and ethical framework.
So at the end of the day, the real masterpiece isn't any one specific law that they discovered. It's the system itself. It's the elegant, demanding, and honest intellectual machinery they used for the discovery. The destination matters, for sure, but the integrity of the journey is everything.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This ancient system is this profound example of our timeless human search for meaning, for order, for a way to build a consistent and coherent world from a set of core principles. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How do we, in our own lives, stress test the logic that connects what we believe to what we do? It's all part of that same search for a truth that can hold up under pressure.